I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
I'm an old soul, got a funky sound. Gonna sing a song, turn the world around.
Hello everybody, Dr. Vasquez here, coming to you live in early March of 2025. And I just read a legal contract today, so I'm going to talk about that contract with you, obviously anonymously, but let's talk about it as an exercise in making legal and financial and business decisions. So the reason I'm doing this, and I just typed this out on the website, the reason I'm doing this is because most of us are raised to be financially and legally ignorant. Not to mention the fact that we're all ignorant, most of us, with relation to like making business decisions. But if you think about it, those are actually three different problems. So not understanding like business strategy is one thing, not understanding legal documents is another thing, and not understanding like money and finances is another thing. And most of us are totally ignorant on all of those topics, or at least we were at some point. But if you think of those as being three different things, each one of those kind of complicates the other. So let's assume, like I was for most of my life, let's assume that I'm totally ignorant about business. But if I'm also ignorant about legal issues and financial issues, then the possibility of me creating a business is minimized, right? And arguably, that's the way the system wants it. I mean, the system wants you to be a dumb employee for the rest of your life. Or, yeah, you know, they want you sweeping floors and shuffling papers and doing calculator work for somebody else. I mean, that's the way the educational system is designed. I'm sure you've seen the comic that says, it was actually a quote, but it got turned into a Peanuts comic, that says, no one is going to give you the education that you need to overthrow them. And that's obviously correct. At least, you know, in standard public and private education. So like in my case, for example, like when I was a kid, I started out in public school, then I went to private school, and then I went to public school, and then I went to private school again, and that got me through high school. But in all of those public and private schools, like we didn't learn a damn thing about legal issues or business or finances. I did take a class when I was in public high school in Texas. I took a class on civil law, as I recall, but it was pretty low intensity, just chit chat. So I'm assuming that some of you are just as ignorant as I have been for most of my life. So, you know, like when I say we're all ignorant, I'm talking about me too. But over the last couple of years, I've had to learn to not be so ignorant. And every day that I'm engaged in business and not doing like science and research and whatever, what I'm not doing, so the way that I kind of structure my life right now is like the research, medical science work, and then communicating that work. So I have to spend time studying research articles, and I'm happy to do that. I enjoy doing it, especially if the article is well written. I read an article recently from Russia that was published in 2004, and that was one of the most damn brilliant articles I've ever read in my life. The whole thing was crystal clear. They doubled and tripled and duplicated the confirmation of their own work within their own publication. I mean, this thing was just a masterpiece. Really great. So the way that I look at my work right now is I've got like medical nutrition research science here, and then that's the learning part, and then the communication part of that, whether it's a book or an article or a video. And then the third part is the infrastructure part of business and taxes and logistics and things like that. So that's the part that I'm referencing right now, that I've had to give more time to, because I don't want to deal with all that stuff. I don't want to read, I don't want to talk to attorneys, I don't want to deal with taxes, I don't want to deal with legal documents. I don't even want to check my mail. But at least now I'm developing systems to do those things. Whereas in the past, I was totally clueless. You know, for like a long time around paying my taxes, I was totally clueless. And then I got less clueless. And the way that I got less clueless, for example, and this is what worked for me, at the time, my taxes were complicated because I had like a couple different business entities and different sources of income, and I didn't know what the hell to do with all that stuff. And, you know, well, I guess my family was actually pretty lame when it came to dealing with these topics, let's say. Let's assume they were great at everything else, but let's assume they were pretty lame at these things. You can assume that if you want. But like in terms of like what I learned from my family in terms of business and taxes and money and all that stuff was pretty minimal. Even though my mom actually worked for a law firm for probably 25 years. You know, she could have passed something along, maybe. My uncle, as I mentioned before, was a really successful architect. And he taught me a few things. And I guess I was glad to get a few table scraps. But in terms of, you know, advancing my knowledge of how to be a safe and secure adult in a world of finances and legal issues, I mean, it didn't help me at all. I talked about that in one of the recent videos, so I guess you could go back and look at that. Or you could do a search on my blog for something related to my uncle, because I think I mentioned him specifically. Let's see. My father was actually a legit businessman, but he didn't teach me anything. He gave me some references and some tapes and some books, but that was about it. So, you know, here I am at whatever decade of my life, trying to, you know, learn this stuff and figure it out. And being the teacher that I am, I share with you the stuff that I learned. So, knowledge and wisdom, I guess what I want to say about that is it's not really generalizable. So a person, like in my case, you know, like I'm really good at medical and science and nutrition research. I can look at it all day. I can tell you what's good. I can tell you what's crap. I'm pretty laser sharp in that area. I can predict things that haven't been published based on patterns that I see in biology and natural sciences. I'm good at it. But I've had to specifically work at getting better at legal and financial things. So, like I said, you know, wisdom and intelligence and knowledge isn't always generalizable. Like being an expert here doesn't make you an expert in other things. And it's also something that has to be maintained on a moment-to-moment and hourly basis. I mean, if you drop, even if I went to law school, which I almost did a few times, even if I went to law school, that doesn't insulate me from the occasional mistake. I could still screw up. So I'll try not to screw up. But one of my favorite phrases that I learned a long time ago was exactly this: to have it made, we must keep it made. And what that obviously means is, you know, if you're on the ball on your topic, which means you have it made, finances or relationship or whatever, if you have it made, you still have to stay on your game every day. So even if you're really good at this stuff, you still have to be good at it every day. And so I'll share with you a few quotes that I just excerpted from this contract that I just read today. And I'll see what you think. So see what you think about these quotes. And let me read what I just wrote, because they just kind of introduced the topic, and now obviously I'm making a video out of it. But here's the way it reads right now. The reason that I periodically review my personal experiences in business and legal issues is because most of us are raised and miseducated to be financially and legally ignorant. So I think some politician, I think it was an American politician, said, "I don't want philosophers, I want workers." And that's why our educational system, even all the way to medical school, I mean, medical school these days is just atrocious. Medical school, in the past, medical school made doctors. Now, medical school makes residents to work in hospitals like slaves. So, I mean, that's what medical school is designed to do. A lot of medical students graduate from medical school, and I'm talking about in the United States. It's probably actually better in other countries. A lot of American medical students graduate from medical school these days, and they don't know a damn thing about treating and managing patients. What they know how to do is pass exams, memorize minutia, study on their own, and work like slaves in hospitals. I mean, that's what medical training is designed to do these days. And that's crystal clear to me. Because I went through 2 programs before I went to medical school that were the opposite of that. They trained us to be good clinicians and good clinical thinkers, not, hospital drones. And so when I went to medical school, 10 years later, I could see, wow, they're not even training these kids to treat a sore throat or poison ivy or anything. Like in naturopathic medical school, we were trained all the way to treating cancer. And certainly things like hypertension and eczema and psoriasis and, some chronic pain issues. In medical school these days, like I said, kids learn how to pass exams, but it's not about treating and managing patients effectively. The assumption is that you're going to graduate from medical school and go to a residency program for 3 years, working 80 to 100 hours per week, which means on the clock or on the calendar, it looks like 3 years of work, but it's actually 6 or 9 years of work. So the assumption is you're going to graduate medical school, go work in a hospital, and that's where you'll get your education. Well, what the hell's the point in going to medical school then, if you're just going to learn how to be a slave to a hospital? So that's the medical school paradox these days. Okay, so I'm going to read you these quotes. Right, so let me give you more context and then I'll read the quotes and then we'll finish the exercise. Today I reviewed a contract for specialty legal services and the referral came from a firm that I use and that I'm very happy with. So this was a little bit based on trust. I had a call with the attorney last week for about 35 minutes to discuss the scope of the work, which is clearly defined, currently limited, like we only have 4 exercises that we need to complete. We need to do 1 new one and then repeat 3 other exercises. But this will clearly increase in the future, and each one of those will be specifically defined. So this isn't like some vague, nebulous contract. It's like, look, I need you to do 1 job and then 3 other jobs, and then in the future, we're going to repeat those 3 small jobs about 5 times. So this is very clearly defined. We talked about it on the phone for 35 minutes. But this will clearly increase in the future. Each of the tasks, like I just said, is clearly defined and reasonably routine. I mean, we're not breaking new ground here. In looking at the contract today, I noticed the following 5 components directly quoted from the contract. So the exercise of this review is, would you sign this contract? Or should I sign this contract? Number 1, our current standard billing rates for those paralegals and attorneys, which we anticipate will be handling work on behalf of your company, range from $400 to $1,450 per hour. Number 2, please review the terms of engagement with the assistance of an independent counsel if you wish. The following sentence states, if all terms are satisfactory, please indicate your consent by signing this letter and returning it to me. However, your continuing instructions in this matter will amount to your acceptance of the terms of this letter, including the terms of engagement as follows. Point number 4. We are affiliated with our, branch office in London, England, and if we obtain advice and or services on your behalf from that firm, we will include their time and expenses on our bill. Point number 5, this is the last one. And this isn't a quote, this is just my reflection on what I had read in the document. No mention of the scope of defined work that we discussed in the phone conversation. So my question is, should I sign this contract? Would you sign this contract? So think about it for a second. And I'm not doing this exercise because I think the answer is necessarily obvious. You may look at those terms and you may say, that's perfect, I'll take it. Sign me up, I'll pay you right now. You could do that. Some of that language is probably somewhat, maybe it's considered standard. Maybe you think it's standard, maybe you think it's right on. But I'm going to give you my interpretation of those 5 points. Like I said, I'm just doing this because someone out there needs to begin becoming more aware of these things. And I was that person for a long time. And now we have a way to discuss these things, namely this blog, my blog in this case, healthythinking.substack.com. So, somehow, and this, among the things that frustrate me, this is one of them. I got a bachelor's degree in human biology. Then I spent 4 years in chiropractic college for Doctor of Chiropractic degree. And then finished off 4 years of naturopathic medical education for a Doctor of Naturopathic Medicine degree. Then I practiced for 6 years, and I published a lot of articles, and I did a lot of conferences and conference presentations and things like that. And then I went to, one of the top osteopathic medical schools in the United States. I think at the time it was ranked number 2. And it was top ranked in family medicine, rural medicine, and a bunch of other stuff. I think it was like number 25 in the country, which is considered a top medical school. Anything in the top 50 is considered a top medical school. And I think at that time we were number 28 or so. So here's the point that I'm making. I went through all that damn schooling for 16 years. 4 years of undergraduate, 4 years of chiropractic, 4 years of naturopathic medical school, 4 years of osteopathic medicine, and then hospital training after that. So a person, in my case, me, a person can be really well educated and still be completely ignorant about business and finance and legal. So anyway, that's why we're doing the exercise. All right, so I'm going to give you my answers. I'm going to reread each of those 5 points. I'm going to give you my intellectual and, if necessary, visceral response to it. And then by then you'll know if I'm signing this contract or not. I need this work done. So if I don't go with this company, then I have to go with another one. That means I have to start over and find another company from scratch, which is kind of going to suck. But if this contract isn't acceptable as it is, then I'm starting from zero anyway. So I'm going to reread those 4 points. I'll put them on the screen so you can read them. Right now I'm going to do it again, and I'll give you my response. Our current standard billing rates for those. So here's point number 1. Our current standard billing rates for paralegals and attorneys ranges from $400 to $1,400 per hour. So here's my response number 1.